there's no running from the punishment coming. We're going into the acid vat tonight on Thunderdrum Metal Reviews. Welcome. We're reviewing Corpsegrinder by Corpsegrinder. As always, I'm one of the four pistons that makes Ascension go. I'm David Pizzo. With me are Ben, Gabriel, and Tracy, who are known for various crimes and club ownership, and I guess Tracy's just mass slaughter. So how are you gentlemen doing on this scorched, zombie-filled, metal bellowy evening?
I am enjoying the over-the-top ludicrousness of not only this cover, but this album as a whole.
He knows what it is. He knows who he is. He knows who you are. He knows where we are.
Riding in on the wings of carnage here.
Indeed.
Sometimes there's a man. I mean, here he is. Wings of carnage, indeed.
The
Tracy,
album that
feeling?
was needed just brings a sense of normalcy to the carnage that is this world.
I've asserted to you many times that death metal's time has finally arrived. Like the 80s and 90s were the birth pains, and now, it's this scene.
If 2020 was like the second coming, this is like the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth coming right now.
The 17th coming.
No, 2010, like pre-2008 was the second coming, and then it's just like, oh, we're going to do it again post-2016. That's what it is.
I just know that if we need a hero who can do a hellacious hair windmill, George Fisher is that person.
That's one of his finisher attacks. His hair windmill slices the zombies in half as he spins.
That's true. Well, this is Corpsegrinder by Corpsegrinder, released on February 25th of 2022. It is the debut studio album, although he did have another band also with his nickname as the name. But anyway, it's apparently a different project. This was released on Perseverance Media Group, which is apparently owned by Jamie Jasta, who produced this, which I add parenthetically that is the Jamie Jasta's name for a label ever. The runtime is 31 minutes and 3 seconds. The band is George Corpsegrinder Fisher on vocals. And then they add additional musicians, the ones who actually played this stuff. Eric Ruchan, who played guitars on the first track, Charlie Belmore, who played guitars and bass on everything else, and Nick Belmore, of some relation, I'm sure, who played drums. So yeah, David, why did this need to happen?
So this needed to happen for the following reasons. What had happened is I found out that George did not get to write any of the lyrics on the 700 albums he recorded with Cannibal Corpse. I mean, everyone we looked at, he didn't get writing credits. I was like, what the fuck? And so I wondered what would happen if he got to write his own lyrics, because I knew he went to claw machines and won stuffed animals to surprise kids at schools, right? He goes with his kids to Disneyland. He's got this whole normal dad charity stuffed animal donor thing going. I was like, I don't know, what would he sing about if he could fly free? And I now know, and it is really basically the same things as Cannibal Corpse. So, I mean, I guess this is a Venn diagram. If you did not tell me this was not a new Cannibal Corpse album, I would still have questions, because it's really obviously trimmed down to make room for his bombacity. But
there's also a little bit of that New England hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
noticed more in this than I did in Venom Prison. I don't know why, but
opposite. I don't know.
Yeah,
I want to know. I do want to say the lyrics on this. It's a Cannibal Corpse-ish, but it's very through much a Conan the Barbarian lens.
Ghostwritten by Robert E. Howard.
Yeah, it is more annihilation of all life in Yemen and zombie apocalypse than some of the really unfortunate sexual violence shit that was what it was in the catalog, overlapping with his era. I mean, still to this day.
Yeah.
And I know maybe I'm splitting hairs here between ethnic cleansing and sexual violence, but I don't know, dude. It's, as I've told you all, it's all like a bridge too far.
One's cartoony, one's not.
I mean, they're both
actually
quite
cartoony.
real.
Well, I'm saying one being portrayed in a cartoony fashion versus the other one being portrayed in a cartoony fashion are very different connotations.
Yeah, maybe I'm just number to one than the other, but
yeah, possible.
I mean, that's what happens when you spend 90% of your time reading about Nazis.
Yeah, I also,
and genocide.
Given what my wife does, and given I just live in a world where currently there is much more sexual violence than murder by barbarians. It could come at any time. I could see that, Tracy, but it's too real, man.
There's also a little bit of that whole Godsmack revenge-ish thing in these lyrics, but anyway, I will shut up so Gabe can talk.
It's not nearly as bad as some of the other records we listen to. You got to admit that. Also, just to not to not to downplay any of the lyrical content on Cannibal Corpse's records or on this record, but if you're coming to this record to listen to the lyrics, I think you came for the wrong reason. Not to like shout, not to call anybody out, but it's like, I don't know. I think if you wanted
someone is writing a thesis on Cannibal Corpse lyrics and you just dash their hopes, Gabe.
No, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying, like, if this is the record you come to because the lyrics are what are drawing you in, I'm not sure that there are that many people who are doing that. And it's because I think that, what's impressive about this record is not necessarily what is being said, but how it's being said. And also, the music arrangement such that the voice is really upfront. And that's, say what you want about that choice. It really works for Corpsegrinder. And, I think this is also true in looking back on it. What you all are saying about like has sort of like the bit more hardcore production to it than it does your typical death metal record. And I think that is okay. But it didn't put me off, of course.
I think that hardcore is through Jamie Johnson's producing. I think that's where a lot of that probably came from.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I actually didn't really notice it as much here. I'm the opposite of Ben, probably because there was like some groove thrown in there. It is very much pared down to put him front and center. I feel the same way about 6 Feet Under, at least the couple albums I've heard. In some ways, I think that's almost more comparable to this than Cannibal Corpse, which has sort of more layering going on in terms of sound. And I actually, and I didn't go back, and I should listen to Cannibal Corpse to compare, but I don't think he's quite up as up in front of the mix.
I would agree with that. I really feel that Cannibal Corpse is a more riff-driven sound than this is. So it's really focusing more on the guitars. This is, it's his show all the way through. And he has one of the best voices in the style of metal.
He does.
You can say that over an entire album worth when he's up front and center that there's not a whole lot of different intonation or anything like that in his voice. Whatever, that's a small ding. And also, I think for this genre, this is a party record. This is
100%.
It's not complicated. It's not complicated whatsoever.
Exactly.
It's very straightforward. It's not rocket science, but it is really fun. I think that's what sort of brought me back to it. Is that it's not super taxing, and it's just it's easy.
Agreed.
Like I almost want to. So stay with me on this one.
Okay.
So what it kind of reminds me of is this is almost like a love letter, fan letter that's written for Corpsegrinder by fans in a sense. That's just like, there's nothing really, if you're listening to this album, you're not listening to it to like, all right, what's to critically critique it. If you're listening to it more as a fan, come to enjoy this sideshow extra project that you got from them because they wanted to give it to the fans, not necessarily because, hey, we're doing it because we want it as artists. They're like, hey, we wanted to give you guys this something extra. And I think as fans coming in and listening to it, like we're not sitting down listening to it as harshly as you would as a traditional record because this is much more of the fan project.
Maybe.
I agree with that. I'd be like, this is a little, that simplicity didn't bother as much because I knew he was just going to get on the stage and bellow at me.
I don't think the simplicity is bad at all, but also we are not like part of death metal Reddit elitist subreddit anyway.
Like
also true.
The closest thing I could compare it to, and I didn't want to make this comparison because it'd be lost on quite a bit of people because it's a wrestling comparison, but it's when you go see a show, like I went and saw that IPWF with like the 1980s knockback, which it's all just kind of bullshit and gimmicky. And you go in expecting zero expectations because you're like, hey, I'm just here as a fan to enjoy it and experience it. So you're not looking at it to critique it as you would other aspects of the venues of that for that purpose. So even though like they're not doing the greatest solos or the heaviest riffs, but you're just there for enjoyment purposes only. You're not over critiquing it.
Well, I also think that kind of goes back to David's thing at the beginning, is like, I'm sure he's written lyrics this entire time, and for whatever reason, they didn't see the light of day in Cannibal Corpse. But here, it's a perfect venue for them. And you don't need to overcomplicate that when it's the singer who's the carrying in the name of the band. I mean,
yeah.
So it's I think it's similar to like when Bruce Dickinson decided to do some solo albums because he wasn't getting
like
right
those
in Iron Maiden. I did too,
Yes.
but it's a different take on the musicality. So
Sure. I mean, Fight was not the same as Judas Priest.
it was not. It was not. Are we ready to move to tracks?
No, I just want to say, did everybody enjoy the how did you guys think of the grooveness behind the Corpsegrinder? Because typically you have the death metal thrash speed aspect to it, but you get much more slower turn backness with him just kind of chugging along on it.
That is a ride I would go on forever because that is how 1996 felt. I don't know, like, right? That's roots, man. I mean, I'm easy mark for that. That's why its simplicity bothered me less than like I don't care. And the hardcore, there was so much of that groove. The hardcore was just them getting more gas. I don't know, but yeah, I was here for it, Tracy. Obviously,
I was also here for it, but maybe not to the same levels because the listening cycle for this was around the same time as all the 30th celebration of Vulgar Display of Power was going on. So I went back and re-listened to Vulgar Display of Power, and the difference in the proficiency of groove between Pantera and these guys. I mean, I know that's like not a fair comparison. Yeah.
They're like studio musicians that came in off the street.
Studio musicians against gods. I mean, come on, man.
But I mean, I appreciate the groove, but if I hadn't heard like the masters of the groove of the same week, I probably would have enjoyed it a whole lot more. But it was still nice. I like David. You can groove is one of those lanes that I can very easily fall into and be happy to just ride down the lazy river of groove. So
yeah, my feeling about it, I think, comes close to, Tracy, what you were describing before about kind of coming into it without expectations. And because I didn't expect any groove, it was nice to have that kind of switch, the switching up in between all of it. Because let's face it, it's, you're really just listening for, or a lot of people are just listening for Corpsegrinder, and he's there for you every track. But it's like, the music doesn't have to be kind of like, I don't know, it also doesn't have to be the same, typical death metal thing. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, 100%. So, David?
This is easy. All of them. Because, gentlemen, if you like one of these tracks, you're going to like them all. I mean,
I would mostly agree with you, but there's actually one of these tracks that I don't like.
No, I mean, Into the Acid, that is a bold statement. As an opener, it is, it really told me that
great.
I, for betraying him, was being cut into pieces and dissolved in acid. So,
but you knew it was coming. He had warned you.
He was at his claw machine. He gave me a sideways glance and said, "I will put you in acid if you betray me."
Yeah.
And just all the rest of these songs are just fun. I agree with you, man. It's like a party record for death metal. I don't know, a death metal party, so the boat's on fire. But anyway, it's only 30 minutes, 31 minutes. Right? We don't.
Yes.
Right, Ben?
Yeah, 100%. I totally approve of the record length. I like almost every one of the songs. Crimson Proof, for the record, is the one that I don't really care that much for. And I think that's only because it comes off of All Souls Get Torn and Death is the Only Key, which I really liked. And then it was like, kind of drops off the Crimson Proof. But everything else is, you know what you're going to get. And if you're into this kind of thing, you're going to dig all of it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you guys. I think this sounds, and like all the songs off this album, you like one, you're gonna like them all pretty much. Crimson Proof's all right, but I do think All Souls Get Torn and Death Zone Key are fucking fantastic songs.
Yeah, pick up your glasses again, gentlemen, because I liked all of them.
Aha! Victory.
But especially Acid Vat, Bottom Dweller, All Souls Get Torn, Death is the Only Key, Devourer of Souls, and Defined by Your Demise.
Yeah, really strong stuff there.
Defined by Your Demise is so bad.
It's so good.
It's so fucking good. This album is a lot of fun. It's like you said, the Lazy Groove River, but lava is just pouring into all your orifices.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like the Dante Lazy River.
That's the lazy river we're going to be on.
Sticks. River Sticks.
Yep.
So
Okay.
David,
Okay, y'all. I'm slightly torn because I know what I want to give it, but I also know that, like, does this belong in the British Museum? Right? Is this an album for the ages that needs to be preserved on a golden record and set into space? Probably not. But I agree with Tracy. You know exactly what the ride is going to be. Like, it says Corpsegrinder on the side of the Ferris wheel. And it's just so fun. And I like it a lot more than other albums I've given B, so I have to give it B+. It is an A album. Let's not kid ourselves. At least that's how I feel. I mean, it's, it is a little bit simple, but I think it deserves to be plus, even if you all are about to mock me. I can't tell from your comments. I'm like, oh, is this going to be a for hardcore fans only thing? Because by the rubric, Tracy, that's where you're at.
So I really enjoyed this album. Really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it an A-.
Oh
shit! Hell yes.
I also really enjoyed this album, but I agree with David that I don't think it's worth of an A. Because it is a little just too stylistically one note all the way through. Again, I don't think that I'm not going to ding it too much for that. There's one track that I just don't like, so I'm going to come slightly under David and give this a B. But man, there's not anything at all wrong with this for what is essentially a side project.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm right there with Tracy. I think this is a great album, and I don't care what anybody thinks.
Hell yes.
That brings us to an aggregate of an 89.
I love that journey for this album. I got embarrassed. I'm like, oh shit, is this real basic? I was like, I was spiraling listening to you all talk.
No, this was super fun.
So I agree more to find if our Porter episode didn't teach you guys anything, I grade more on how I personally feel about it, less on how objectively it should be graded.
I weigh too many factors, probably. I don't know. I'm torn by so many things. I mean, that's how Portal ended up with a C+. It was the only choice. Like, man, just the agony of being overly
There was a lot of
academic.
agonizing.
There was a lot.
I was there.
It was like just a whole committee meeting about how to evaluate it. Like, this application is not what we usually get.
Yeah. I would definitely buy this album. I don't know that I would listen to it a super ton, but there are certain occasions when it is the perfect fucking album.
If nothing else, this is an album for the album art alone.
I don't know that I'd go that far. I do like the album art, but I think that this is a good intro to death metal because it's, you get the goofiness, you get the silliness, you're going to get what it's about. And it's, unlike some death metal albums, the vocal, him being one of the science of the genre, but the vocals are intelligible. You can actually understand what he's saying through his vocal fry. And, this is one of those to get them hooked without like pushing them into the deep end of either the Cannibal Corpse or, I don't know, some other super hard death metal band that we've done.
I would buy the shit out of this. Yeah. And I agree with you that it is he's very intelligible. And I think this album has more whimsy than Cannibal Corpse. Cannibal Corpse is some really dark shit in a way that is a little different than this. Mm-hmm. Like just the whole atmospheric of it is, black metal heavy almost in some ways. And as you say, it's very riff driven. So this would be a good gateway drug. And it's, if you're going to have a death metal party, which is the kind of party I would and have had, this is for that party. It's the perfect album, as you say, Ben, for certain occasions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd buy it.
Yeah. Would you, Gabe?
I'm going to buy it, probably.
Yeah, I probably am too. All right, Tracy, what are we doing next time?
Next, we are doing my pick for February. and Persephone's Metatonia.
Y'all, this album cover says everything you need to know about this album going into.
I'm blinded by the light.
So we
Stay
get to-
tuned for
and find
a
how much
return
Finn
to-
loved it on this next episode.
Fight. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time on Thunderdome Metal Room.